The perfect marriage was a lie until I discovered the truth. They say love blinds you. I never thought I'd be the kind of man to fall for an illusion, but that's exactly what happened. Looking back, the warning signs were there, subtle, easy to overlook, but undeniable. I ignored them, mistaking them for quirks of love rather than the cracks in my reality. I met Molly on an unremarkable autumn afternoon in the cereal aisle of a grocery store. She stood on tiptoe, stretching for a box of Cheerios just beyond her reach. When I plucked it from the shelf and handed it to her, she gave me a smile so warm it felt like a private sunrise. "Thanks," she said, brushing a stray blonde curl from her cheek. Her voice was light, playful. "You must be taller than you look." I laughed. "Or you're just shorter than you think." It was a simple exchange, one of those fleeting moments you expect to forget as soon as it's over. But then, she lingered. "Scott, right?" I frowned. "Yeah. Have we met before?" She bit her lip, looking almost embarrassed. "Sort of. I've seen you around. I might have asked about you once or twice." I should have been unnerved. Instead, I was flattered. There was something thrilling about the idea of a beautiful woman noticing me before I'd even noticed her. It made me feel chosen, special. The rest was a blur. First date, second date, falling in love so fast it felt less like a choice and more like gravity. We married within 2 years, and for a while, I truly believed I had everything I'd ever wanted. But Molly didn't come alone. She was a triplet, 3 sisters, identical in every way that mattered. Molly, Amy, and Hannah, 3 versions of the same woman, moving through the world with a synchronized grace that unsettled me, though I could never quite explain why. They were inseparable, their lives so entwined it was as if they shared the same heartbeat. At first, I found it endearing. Their closeness was something special, something sacred. I admired it. But admiration slowly turned to unease. I first noticed it in the small moments. The way they spoke in half-finished sentences, trusting each other to fill in the blanks. The way they exchanged glances across a room, entire conversations passing between them in silence. The way, when they laughed together, it sometimes felt like I was the punchline of a joke I'd never understand. And then there was the physical closeness. They draped over one another absent-mindedly, hands brushing, fingers grazing, heads resting on shoulders in ways that felt just a little too intimate. Once, I walked into the kitchen to find Molly and Amy curled up on the couch, their legs tangled together like lovers rather than sisters. When I cleared my throat, they didn't flinch, didn't even acknowledge the oddness of it. I tried to dismiss my unease. This was just how they were, closer than most siblings, more comfortable with touch. It wasn't my place to question it. But there were other things I couldn't ignore. Sometimes, I'd catch Amy looking at me a little too long, her blue eyes gleaming with something unreadable. Other times, Henna would brush against me in passing, the touch lingering half a second too long. And sometimes, late at night, in the darkness of our bedroom, Molly would kiss me in a way that felt different, almost like someone else. I told myself I was imagining things, that I was paranoid, until the night I overheard them. That was the night the illusion shattered. The night air carried the scent of freshly cut grass and something faintly floral, Molly's perfume, perhaps lingering from earlier that evening. I had come home late from work, exhausted but ready to sink into the comfort of dinner with my wife. Instead, I found an empty house. The silence was wrong. Molly always left the light on, even if she stepped out. But tonight, the house was dark, abandoned. I stood in the entryway, frowning, when I heard it, muffled laughter, feminine and conspiratorial, drifting through the open kitchen window. Amy's house. My pulse quickened. It was nothing unusual for Molly to be with her sisters. They were a unit, an inseparable trio. But something about the sound of their laughter made me pause. It wasn't the warm, casual kind of laughter shared between family. No, this was different. It was sharp, knowing, private. I stepped outside, drawn to the voices. My footsteps were soundless against the damp grass as I moved toward the source. The back door to Amy's kitchen was open just a crack, enough for their words to slip through. I wasn't planning to eavesdrop. Not really, but when I heard my name, I froze. Amy's voice, teasing, "Well, if he's not the best, why do you always want to switch with me?" Switch? A chill ran through me. Molly, laughing softly. "I didn't say Ari isn't good. I just said he doesn't touch me the way Scott does." The world tilted beneath me. My breath caught in my throat. What the hell were they talking about? Hannah, smugly, "Oh, please. You already get Ari more nights a week than any of us, plus weekends." More laughter. A scrape of a chair against the tile floor. The clinking of wine glasses. My mind scrambled to make sense of their words. Switch? Nights with each other's husbands? I felt my stomach drop, a slow, sickening descent into realization. Molly's voice again, casual as ever. "It's been almost a year, and I just don't think Scott can do the job." My heartbeat pounded in my ears. The job? Amy, so you have a backup plan? Silence stretched, then. Molly lightly, "Of course. If his sperm count doesn't improve, he got tested last week, so we'll know soon. I'll just spend a few nights with Ted when I'm most fertile." Simple. Either way, it's a little boring being with Scott every night. And when I know I'm safe at the end of my cycle, I'll spend a couple of nights with Ari. Ted, my neighbor, my friend. My vision tunneled. Amy's laughter filled the space again, bright and unbothered. "No way, Molly. That's not foolproof. You're not getting Ari again until you're pregnant." The words rang in my skull like a bell. Pregnant. The edges of my world blurred. The voices became distant, warped. I gripped the doorframe to steady myself. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This wasn't a joke. This was planned. My wife, my Molly, was talking about getting pregnant with another man's child. And worse, she wasn't the only one. They were all in on it. My hands trembled. The whispers, the lingering touches, the way I sometimes caught Hannah staring at me too long, or the way Amy would casually mention things about my sex life with Molly, things I had never told her. They weren't just sisters. They were orchestrators, a secret society, a conspiracy. I needed to move. I needed to get out of there before I did something reckless. With slow, measured steps, I backed away from the door. I turned and walked home, my body rigid with barely contained fury. The moment I stepped inside, I locked the door behind me and exhaled shakily. My fists ached from how hard I had been clenching them. Molly's words played on repeat in my head. It's a little boring being with Scott every night. She wasn't just betraying me. She was playing me. A quiet rage settled into my bones. I had two choices: pretend I didn't hear anything and live in blissful ignorance, or find out just how deep this nightmare went. And I already knew what I had to do. It was the small things that haunted me first, the passing touches that lingered a second too long, the way Amy smirked at me when Molly wasn't looking, the way Hannah sometimes said my name, soft, testing, as if she was tasting it. Looking back, it was always there. The signs, the moments that didn't quite fit, but I had forced them into place anyway, convincing myself that what I had with Molly was real. But it wasn't. It was something else entirely. That morning, after hearing their conversation, I woke up next to her and felt like I was in bed with a stranger. She lay there, tangled in the sheets, her face peaceful, her breath slow and steady, as if she hadn't spent the night plotting my humiliation, as if she wasn't scheming to let another man father our child. I had never been an angry person. I had never been jealous or suspicious. But now, the rage curled inside me like a living thing. I wanted to grab her, shake her, demand she tell me the truth. But I didn't. Instead, I kissed her forehead like I always did and whispered, "Sleep in, baby. I'll make you some coffee." I needed time. I needed proof. I needed to understand just how deep this went. So I watched. I started with something simple. That afternoon, I texted Molly, saying I'd be home late. A last-minute meeting at work. Her response was quick, almost too quick. "Molly, no worries, babe. Love you." I knew what that meant. The sisters had a schedule. The way they spoke about it, casually like a business arrangement, it made my skin crawl. I drove home early, parked my car a block away, walked the rest of the way, silent, unseen. Molly's car was in the driveway. So was Ari's. But Ted's? Ted's was missing. My heart pounded. I forced myself to breathe. Maybe it was nothing. Maybe Ted had just run an errand. But as I crept through the side yard, approaching Amy's kitchen window, I knew I wasn't that lucky. Through the glass, I saw them. Amy and Molly, sitting at the table, wine glasses in hand, laughing, and across from them, Ari. The words were muffled, but I caught enough. Amy, it's getting complicated. Ari, not if we stick to the rules. Molly, and what if Scott figures it out? A pause. A heavy, weighted pause. Then Amy smirked. Then we deal with it. I stepped back, my hand shaking. What the hell did that mean? That night, I stood in front of the bathroom mirror, staring at my own reflection. I looked normal. I looked like me. But I wasn't. Not anymore. I had spent the day tracing the pieces of this puzzle, and the picture they formed was monstrous. This wasn't just a twisted little fling. It wasn't a lapse in judgment. It was orchestrated. A system. I thought about the times Molly had come home late, her cheeks flushed. The way Amy always joked about men being interchangeable. The way Hannah sometimes watched me with an expression I couldn't quite place. Pity, maybe, or amusement. And then I thought about what they had said. Then we deal with it. My pulse roared in my ears. What did that mean? What would they do to me if they realized I was onto them? Would they lie? Try to gaslight me into thinking I was paranoid? Would they play the victims? Or was it worse than that? I needed more. I needed undeniable proof. The next day, I made my move. I went to Ted's house. He opened the door, a beer in his hand, his usual easygoing grin in place. But when he saw my face, the grin faltered. Hey man, you good? I forced a smile. Yeah, just wanted to talk. He hesitated, just for a second, before stepping aside. Sure, come in. The living room was cozy, the scent of coffee and aftershave hanging in the air. Pictures lined the walls. Ted and Amy on their wedding day at the beach in Paris. Smiling. Happy. Lies. I sat on the couch, rubbing my hands together, feigning nervousness. Can I ask you something? Ted took a sip of his beer. Of course. I looked him dead in the eye. You ever feel like the girls are keeping secrets from us? It was subtle. The way his fingers tensed around the bottle. The way his jaw tightened. So briefly I almost missed it. But I didn't miss it. He forced a laugh. Women, man. They have their own world, you know? Best not to overthink it. He knew. Maybe not everything. Maybe not the full scope of it. But he knew something. And that told me all I needed to know. This wasn't just between the sisters. The husbands, they were either in on it, or they were complicit in their silence. I left soon after, my mind spinning. I had seen enough. I knew now. I was trapped in something far darker than I had ever imagined. Something had shifted between us. I could feel it in the way I carried myself around Molly. Tense, cautious, as if I were sleeping beside a venomous snake that could strike at any moment. But I also felt it in her. She had begun watching me more closely, tilting her head when I was quiet for too long, running her fingers along my arm like she was trying to remind me of something, or maybe trying to keep me distracted. For years, I had taken comfort in the small rituals of our marriage. The way she curled up beside me while we watched TV, the way she traced circles on my back when she thought I was asleep. But now, everything felt rehearsed, or worse, performed. That night, she reached for me. We lay in bed, bathed in the dim glow of the street lamp outside, shadows stretching long across the ceiling. I was on my side, facing away from her, trying to steady my breath. But then her hand slid over my waist, fingers splaying across my stomach, pulling me toward her. You've been distant lately, she murmured against my shoulder. I shut my eyes. I had to be careful. If I moved too quickly, if I let my rage show, she would know something was wrong. and I wasn't ready for that yet. I forced a chuckle, trying to sound tired. Just work stressed, that's all. She hummed, her lips brushing against my skin. I don't believe you. I stiffened. Her fingers tightened slightly on my stomach. You've been different this whole week. Not looking at me the same way. Not touching me. She pressed herself closer, her voice turning softer. Did I do something? I swallowed hard. The sheer audacity of her asking me that, almost made me laugh. Did you do something? Did you lie to me for years? Did you swap husbands like a twisted game of musical chairs? Did you plan to carry another man's child while letting me believe it was mine? I couldn't say any of it. Not yet. So instead, I turned in her arms, forcing myself to meet her gaze. Her blue eyes searched mine, concerned. She looked so real, so utterly genuine. A perfect liar. Of course not, I said. I just have a lot on my mind. She studied me for a long moment, then gave me a slow, knowing smile. I can help with that. Her hands drifted downward, fingers teasing the hem of my shirt, slipping underneath. The intimacy felt suffocating. How many times had she touched me like this after being in another man's bed? My stomach twisted. I couldn't do this. I caught her wrist gently, stopping her movements. Not tonight, Mal. I'm exhausted. Her smile faltered, just for a second. Then, just as quickly, she recovered, withdrawing her hand with a soft chuckle. Okay. I won't push. She rested her head on my chest, her fingers idly tracing over my ribs. But don't shut me out, okay? I don't like it when you keep things from me. I felt a chill crawl down my spine. She didn't like it when I kept things from her? I lay there, silent, while her breathing slowed. It didn't take long for her to drift off, her body relaxed against mine. But I was wide awake, my pulse thudding in my ears. Her words echoed in my mind, over and over. I don't like it when you keep things from me. Neither do I, Molly. Neither do I. I had proof now, enough to know I wasn't crazy. My wife had been sleeping with another man. Not just any man. Ted, my neighbor, my friend. And worse, this wasn't just an affair. It was planned, orchestrated. A system carefully designed by three sisters who saw their husbands as interchangeable. The betrayal ran deeper than I could process. I spent hours, days, trying to decide what to do. Would I confront Molly? Demand answers? Scream at her until she had no choice but to admit what she'd done? Or would I pretend I didn't know? Let the knowledge rot inside me like an untreated wound? Neither option felt right. No, I needed to see it with my own eyes. Not just whispered conversations in the dark. Not just half-heard giggles and glances exchanged like secrets. I needed undeniable proof. So I set a trap. That Friday, as Molly sat on the couch scrolling through her phone, I kept my voice casual. I might be late tonight. Big project at work. She barely looked up. That's fine. I'll probably just hang out with Amy and Hannah. Of course she would. I nodded, grabbed my keys, and left. But I didn't go to work. I parked my car a block away from our house, turning off the headlights before stepping out. The night air was cool, carrying the distant hum of cicadas. The streets of Oakley Square were quiet, peaceful. It disgusted me. I crept toward our house, keeping to the shadows, my heart pounding like a drumbeat in my ears. I didn't want to be right. God, I wanted to be wrong. I wanted this to be some sick misunderstanding. But deep down I knew. The kitchen window was slightly open. A soft, golden light spilled onto the porch. I pressed myself against the house, moving slowly, carefully, until I could hear them. Molly and Ted. I forced myself to peek through the gap in the curtains. Molly stood by the counter, her body language relaxed, her head tilted back in laughter. Ted was close, too close, his hand resting casually on her hip. She reached up, trailing a finger along his jawline. You shaved, she murmured. Ted smirked. You noticed. I always notice. A slow exhale left my body, my vision tunneling. This was not the first time. This was routine. Then, without hesitation, Molly leaned in and kissed him. Not hesitantly, Not guiltily, not like someone making a mistake. She kissed him like she had a right to, like he belonged to her, like I was nothing. Something inside me cracked. I should have burst in, screamed, demanded answers. But instead, I stood there, frozen, watching my wife press her body against my best friend, listening to her whisper secrets meant only for me. Ted pulled away slightly, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "We can't stay here too long," he said. "Scott's supposed to be at work, but you never know." Molly let out a soft laugh. "Oh, please. He never questions anything. We have time." I clenched my jaw. My knuckles turned white. I never question anything. Had I really been that blind? Had they been laughing at me this entire time? Then, Ted reached for her hand and led her toward the stairs. Our stairs. The ones that led to our bedroom. I turned away. I couldn't watch them go up together. That would be the moment that broke me. But I had seen enough. I walked away from the house, my steps slow, controlled. I felt like a ghost moving through my own life, a spectator in a story I had never agreed to be a part of. There was no confrontation that night. No screaming match. No accusations thrown in anger. Instead, I did something far more permanent. I went home, and I started packing. By the time Molly returned later that night, the suitcase was already by the door. I sat at the kitchen table, a letter in front of me. She walked in, her expression casual at first, but then she saw my face. She knew. Her mouth opened, but before she could speak, I pushed the letter toward her. "Read it." Her hands trembled as she picked it up. I watched as her face drained of color. When she finally looked up, there was something almost desperate in her eyes. "Scott, please, I can explain." I let out a breath. Then, with quiet finality, I said, "No, you can't." And then, I walked out the door. I stood outside my own house, watching through the window as Molly led Ted upstairs. My hands trembled, not from anger, but from something worse, cold, hollow realization. It was true. All of it. The whispers, the laughter, the cryptic conversations. The strange feeling that Molly was different some nights, more hesitant or more eager. The lingering glances between the sisters, the unspoken rules they shared. I had spent years living inside a deception so intricate, so perfectly woven, that I had never even seen the threads. Until now. I exhaled slowly, forcing myself to step back from the window, away from the sickening intimacy playing out beyond the glass. A twisted part of me wanted to stay, to watch, to gather more proof, to let the rage consume me. But I knew it wouldn't change anything. The truth was already carved into my bones. I had to leave. Back inside, the house was eerily silent. Our home. Or at least, it had been. I walked through the living room, running my fingers over the framed photos of Molly and me. There we were on our honeymoon, smiling under the golden glow of a Santorini sunset. Another picture, taken last Christmas, showed me with my arm around her, blissfully unaware that she was likely thinking about another man. Or maybe not. Maybe I wasn't even her husband that night. Maybe I had held Amy instead, or Hannah, never knowing the difference. The thought made my stomach churn. I sat at the kitchen table, hands gripping the pen so tightly it almost snapped. I wasn't sure what to say. How do you put betrayal into words? How do you sum up the realization that your entire life has been a lie? I began writing. "Molly, I know everything. I know about Ted, about Ari, about your games. I know that the love I believed in was nothing more than a mask you wore, one of many you and your sisters have perfected. I know I was never a husband to you, only a role to be played in your twisted little world. And most of all, I know this. I'm leaving. I won't scream. I won't beg for answers. I won't give you the satisfaction of seeing me break. I hope, one day, you feel even a fraction of what I feel right now. Goodbye. Scott." I placed the letter on the kitchen counter, right where she would see it. Then I walked to the bedroom, the same bed she had warmed with another man just minutes ago. I took only what I needed, a bag of clothes, my passport, my phone. I wouldn't look back. As I reached the front door, I hesitated. The old Scott, the one who had spent years adoring Molly, believing in her, wanted to turn around, wanted to wait until she came home to see her face when she read the letter. But I wasn't that man anymore. I turned the knob, stepping into the cool night air. As I walked to my car, I glanced once more at Amy's house. The kitchen lights were still on. I imagined them in there, sipping wine, laughing, spinning more lies to trap the next fool who wandered into their web. I gritted my teeth. No more. I slid into the driver's seat and started the engine. The road stretched out before me, dark and endless, but for the first time in a long time, I felt something close to freedom. I had lost my wife, but maybe, just maybe, I had finally found myself. I drove for hours without a destination, gripping the wheel so tightly my knuckles ached. The road stretched before me, empty and endless, swallowed by the night. I turned off my phone somewhere past the city limits, silencing the vibrating reminders of my shattered life. Molly was calling. Of course she was. At some point, I pulled into a roadside motel, the neon sign buzzing in the quiet. The room smelled like bleach and stale air. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the wall, trying to make sense of it all. What had been real? The way Molly used to hold my face in her hands when she kissed me? The way she whispered my name in the dark? The way she'd roll over in the morning and nuzzle against my chest, sighing contentedly? Had any of it been real, or had I simply been playing a role in a script she had written long before I even met her? I turned my phone back on. 37 missed calls, 3 voicemails, and 1 text. Scott, please, just talk to me. I pressed play on the first voicemail. Her voice was frantic, breathless. Scott, I don't know where you are, but please, please come home. I can explain everything. I swear it's not what you think. Not what I think. I played the next one. Okay, you're scaring me now. Just tell me you're okay. I love you. You know that, right? We can fix this. Fix this. The last voicemail was different. Her voice was softer, quieter, the kind of voice she used when she wanted to manipulate me. Scott, I know you're listening, and I know you're angry. But before you do anything drastic, just remember, secrets go both ways. Let's not make a mess of things. Call me. I froze. Secret go both ways. My breath hitched. What did that mean? Was she bluffing? Or did she actually have something on me? I wasn't perfect. I had my share of mistakes. But nothing like this. Nothing that could justify what she had done. Right? I put the phone down, rubbing my temples. My mind was a hurricane, swirling with questions I didn't want to ask. How long had she been planning this? Was I the only husband in Oakley Square who had found out? And the worst thought of all, the one that made my stomach lurch, was Molly pregnant? Had she already switched me out for Ted? Or Ari? Had she already sealed my fate as the unwitting father to a child that wasn't mine? I stood abruptly, pacing the small room. I had to do something. But what? Going back wasn't an option. I knew that. I could never look at Molly the same way again. But leaving wasn't enough. I couldn't just disappear and let them get away with it. They had been playing a game for God knows how long. But I could play too. I picked up my phone, staring at Molly's last message. Then, for the first time since leaving, I smiled. Let's not make a mess of things, she had said. Oh, Molly, you have no idea what kind of mess I'm about to make.